All right, I got a question for you here. Ever heard of an organization called Still She Rises? Well, our guest on this segment is Asher Levinthal with Still She Rises. All right, my friend, I have to tell you, first of all, welcome. Second, I ain't never heard of you before. What is this organization all about?
Well, we opened our doors about a year ago in January 2017. We're the first legal nonprofit devoted to representing mothers in the criminal justice system.
Really?
And so we came about, myself along with 4 others, came down from the Bronx, actually, Bronx, New York. We worked for an organization called the Bronx Defenders, and we're actually a project of the Bronx Defenders. And the Bronx Defenders is a holistic public defender's office, which means we represent their men and women in the criminal justice system. But we recognize that an arrest isn't the beginning and end of it, and that there's a lot of collateral consequences that can come about from a single arrest. So it may affect your housing. It could affect your rights to your children. They could be taken away. It can affect your license. You know, if you're a truck driver, it could affect your livelihood. And certainly when we're working with, and we realize in Oklahoma, which has the highest rate of female incarceration in the country, that for women, and the second highest overall, that there is an unaddressed need of working with women, in particular mothers in the criminal justice system, that other offices hasn't really focused on, since the criminal justice system is often dominated by men or in talking about men. So we wanted to come here, open an office representing mothers in North Tulsa, and really dig in and look at in what ways are mothers in particular impacted by the criminal justice system, and what can we do to help them and represent them in court.
How are you guys paid? How do you make, if you're a public defender type?
So we're in the Bronx, we're a public defender's office that's paid by the city. Here in Oklahoma and Tulsa, we're privately funded, in large part due to a generous support from the George Kaiser Family Foundation. But additionally, the Zaro and other generous donors help keep our lights on and staff paid.
Were you one of the founding members?
Yes. I came down in a little over a year ago to help get the office off the ground, along with 3 other attorneys and an advocate, and our executive director, Robin Steinberg, who was the founding executive director of the Bronx Defenders 20 years ago. And we came down and started Still She Rises about a year ago today.
I can't begin to imagine, although I won't say it's beyond the realm of possibility, but I can't begin to imagine what one would feel like to be charged with a crime, incarcerated, facing a bail you can't afford to pay, and losing virtually everything while you wait for a court appearance. Do you see much of that?
We see a lot. Sadly, we see that all the time. And exactly what you said is a bail you can't afford to pay is key, and that you're waiting in jail. And you can wait even 6 days before you see a judge or see a lawyer. And in that 6 days, if you can't afford that bail, you may lose your job. You didn't show up to work the next day and no one knows where you are. You may be evicted because you haven't paid the day's rent, or most importantly, especially when you're talking about our clients who are oftentimes caregivers.
And children could end up in social services, which is another fight you're going to have to go through after whatever happens with adjudication.
Exactly. And so that can happen. If you're picked up on shoplifting or some silly thing, or in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then your children can be affected and they can be placed in foster care. And that's another thing we do is at Still She Rises to combat that issue and address it, is our attorneys aren't just working with our clients in the criminal justice system, but also in the juvenile justice system and in the housing court system as well. So we'll go with them to represent them to try to get their children back if they are removed by social services.
So you really carry some weight for the families.
Well, we try to, advocate on their behalf in different courtrooms across the city across the county that affect them.
Well, is Oklahoma a pilot project for you, or are you in other states?
Right now, we're only in Oklahoma, and that's where we're focused, is in Tulsa in particular, in North Tulsa. Obviously, we do our work in the Bronx, but Still She Rises is focused on North Tulsa and really trying to dig in both into the needs of the community and to work with the community, and also to address and look at in what ways we can be most effective in working with mothers facing that are justice involved, criminal justice involved.
I read recently that there was a lady about to launch a project similar to what you're talking about and bring it to Oklahoma for the same reason. And I can't recall the name of the organization, but I had no idea, and of course, it just shows you how out of touch I am, the number of people who enter that endless cycle of the Justice Department, if you will, the police department, the sheriff's department, and then working your way out right on up through the court system. I have heard people mention it. I did some fact checking the other day and was astounded to learn that how many people are either out on bail, who can't make bail, one of the two, and are facing some sort of judicial resolution.
Yeah, it's astounding the numbers of people either in jail because they can't afford bail, who haven't even been convicted of anything wrong, or, as you said, those awaiting trial and fighting it. And another way which we see a lot of our clients remain justice involved for years and years is if you take a plea to, let's say, possession of a drug, you may get 3 years of probation. And for that probation, you have to pay the district attorney's office $40 a month for supervision, for them to supervise your probation. Additionally, you're paying all the court costs that go along with your case. So you may have $500 in fines and then also $1,000 in fees for paying for your prosecution. And now when you're dealing with a population that oftentimes, the whole reason they committed the crime is it may be oftentimes an economic crime. They stole something, they have very little means, they may be homeless, and then they're told they have to pay $70 a month every month. And if they don't do that, they're out of compliance with their probation, and then they can get rearrested again and go back to jail.
So it becomes a never-ending cycle.
Exactly right. It can be a never-ending cycle where you're on probation, you're trying to make your payments, you can't. You have to make a decision about whether to feed my kids this month, whether to pay my rent, or whether to pay my probation fee. And if you're not paying those fines, you can end up back in jail and then repeat that cycle over again.
And no telling the damage, the psychological damage it causes to the child.
Oh, 100, exactly. And there's studies that show that the effects of children, if they're that have incarcerated parents or incarcerated mothers in particular, and the likelihood of them getting expelled from school, suffering from depression, being suicidal, all of that goes up if they have an incarcerated mother. And so it's really, really important that we try to keep families together, keep mothers out of jail, work with them to keep the family unit intact. And it's not just for our clients, but also their children.
My wife is in the mental health field. As a licensed therapist, she's been involved in this profession for a great many years. Retired recently, they called her back. She goes in and works part-time, but she said, I'm at an age, I need a break. I can tell you, I have seen her come home. She can't talk to me about cases or people, but her complexion is darker. She's quiet. It's clear to me that whatever or whomever she met with had an effect on her emotionally. Does that ever happen to you? Yeah,
it can. I mean, it's certainly a job that takes a toll on you. Emotionally, you really develop close ties with your clients. And especially at Still She Rises, we work hard to foster close relationships with clients and really get to know them. We have lower caseloads, so we're able to do that. And it's hard. When you see a client lose custody of their children, or you see a client go to jail or prison, it takes a lot out of you. And I think something we try to foster at Still She Rises internally is a really supportive network of attorneys and advocates that work together to be there for each other. So it's okay to come back to the office and say, this really horrible thing happened to me today. And then in addition to that, outside the office, you got to have hobbies, activities, things to keep you going and sustain you when you're doing difficult work.
All right, we've got about 30 seconds. Someone needs your service. How do they get in touch?
Sure. They come through our doors. We're open 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. They have to be a mother in North Tulsa. They can call us as well, or go to our website, stillsherises.org. If you want to, you can donate money there, or you can get our number or an address on the phone and reach out to us. But we'll represent mothers in North Tulsa in the criminal justice system, with housing court issues, with DHS issues. We please urge you to call and reach out. And if you want to be a supporter, go to our website and find out how you can get involved.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
It's desperately needed.
Well, thank you for having me on and to talk about the work we're doing.
I want to talk with you further down the road. Is that all right?
That would be fantastic.
You're
yeah.
a good man, Charlie Brown.
Yeah. Thank
you very much. That's all the time we have for this edition of Perspectives. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time around.